Thank you guys so much for coming to our 2020 annual conference. This is a change for everybody. It's online this year, but hopefully that doesn't detract from the experience. Conrad, I'm going to pass it off to you to give our opening words.
Hi, everyone. This is Conrad Lee. I am very, very happy to see you all, even though we are not seeing you in person. This pandemic we are experiencing is such a dramatic thing. It really has touched all of us. And however, it does have some positives, is that we are giving everybody, especially young people, mostly like you, who now has your life interrupted, and you never expected to see such a health pandemic that affect everybody, and your life to be interrupted, is disrupted, and now most of you are going online learning, and so it's a time that we all start thinking, what is all about? What are our values? The society we see, we're hearing, and we're looking at it is so polarized. So I think it's a time for sensitive young people like yourself. And so I think it's very appropriate that, our Pathway Foundation, which I was very fortunate to have founded a few years back with Mr. Steve Chan and Mr. YP Chan. And we have the purpose of this to help and encourage our young people, particularly the community that have not been so used to civic engagement, who as a whole in a community in our country nowadays, because there's so many challenges and so many challenging competing interests, and also we noticed that the world, the country, especially in politics, is so polarized. We are hearing so many different voices from all over the place. We don't know what really is our common goal, what our values that we, especially being a country now, we are having so many immigrants coming here, and we have so many people from all over the world. Especially, everybody knows United States, it's a nation of immigrants. But in the past, that has been proven a effort to unite all of us, looking for the common value, common goal. Why do we want to come to the United States? Because it's for certain values that we all share. But now, because we have kind of forgotten so many different voices from everywhere, we're being hit from all directions, all different needs. So it's really hard to say what is our true value. And so with this experience we just have faced, and we're seeing election coming up, national presidential election, and again we're seeing a lot of different voices, different situations happening, and especially with young people like yourself who are very sensitive, who are noticing your life is being disrupted, and everybody's life disrupted, your families. And so as a result, there's a lot of questions as asked, what is our value? And so what do they mean by community? What is our community? Who are we? And what do we have in common? So I think it's important, it's a time for us to know what is our community, what is the civic engagement, and how do we find out what our common values are? How do we interact with other people? How do we communicate with them? So I think it's a time for you to begin. I think many of you, that's the reason why you joined Pathway Foundation. That's the reason why you joined the mayoral internship, is to satisfy some of those questions that you raised. Some of those questions you have been thinking about or have made you aware that you're thinking, what are the values that we all share? What are our own values? What are the values that we uphold? And how do we sustain these values if you know what these values are, if you agree with these values? And so what makes you click? That's another reason. What makes everybody click? How do we achieve our common goals? And what you're asking sometimes, I believe, is what is our purpose in life? You know, just going to school, yes, great. That's a very important piece of it. Be a good family member, be a good child, and be somebody who obeys the law. I think these are all important things that we do. And especially, you know, today when you go to school, you want to be able to do a good job. You want to get good grades. You want to go to a good college, and you want to be successful. But what does it mean by being successful? So I think these are all things that being sensitive young people you begin to start questioning it. And you also see the pandemic that's brought onto the society, how people have been suffering and how it has impacted all of us, and how the responses we see are coming from all over the place. And so, you know, there's a lot of questions that I believe that we are facing. So it's important that, you know, we have a place where we can safely learn about ourselves, our identity, our values, and learn about other people's values, because not everybody may share the same value or believe same values. We need to be able to communicate with each other. We need to find out and listen and learn the skills, be patient, and respect other people, and find out what we all believe in, what we have in common, what are the challenges we all face together. And I think this really brings on the need and importance of having a place, a safe place, like what we are offering you, and outside school, and help you to communicate, reinforce the people that want to help you, that love you, your parents, and other folks that see that your future is going to be something that is in your own hand. It's something that you can do, that you feel that you're confident. You have the self-confidence and learn how to set some goals because you find some purpose in your life. There's a meaning that, you know, you can set as a goal to achieve. So I think that's important. So that's the reason why we are very, very, very fortunate that you are willing, you're happy, you're joining the internship. So I hope that this conference will give you a glimpse of what Pathway Foundation's mayoral internship offer all of you. And so it's something for you to have people similar to your interest, to your ability and so on, and a place where you feel safe, that you can work together as a team. You know, these are things that you have to experience, have personally, to have a belief, interest that you want to explore. We don't want to just force feed you, tell you what you're supposed to do. It's important, that you need to know, and you need to have your own passion to want to find out more about something, and then be able to do something about it, be able to make a difference, and learn some of the skills together with your friends, with your peers, and so that you will make a difference in your life, in your community, have meaning, have purpose, and that you will make a positive impact to yourself, to your family, and to your community. So I want to, again, thank you for showing interest to be here. And I want you to look at the model, the example, some of the experiences of others, and so that, it be something you can use and help you to find the values, identify your interests, and have passion to set a purpose, and you can see what you can accomplish. So ultimately, you find meaning in your life. So if those of you who just joined us, I want to thank you. I want to make sure that you have the other interns that are ahead of you, that they can part of the people and help you to grow, to do all those things that we just mentioned. And for those of you who are just not an intern yet, who are, I welcome you and thank you for joining this conference, that you can learn something about it. So hopefully, you will add to this whole process, this opportunity, and to learn more about how you can be a force, make a difference in your own life and in the community. So what we can do today is I want to introduce some of the folks that have been working very hard in this. The first one is, of course, Kristen Yao. She was the leader of the internship last year, and she just got into UW, and I assume the school will be beginning for her soon. So she is responsible for organizing this conference. I want to thank her for the good work she has done for the last few years, and especially for putting up this conference. And I want to also acknowledge that she, as I mentioned before, you don't do much unless you work as a team. So it's a team effort, and I believe there's Jared Jarway, who he's the leader of this youth intern for this coming year. So she has been helping Kristen, and so I want to thank him as well. And of course, not last but not the least, I want to thank the parents for supporting all the efforts that we're doing, supporting the children. And it's a family affair, and it's important that they help each other and communicate. So, not to, there'll be other people who'll be speaking, but I just want to take this time because there's a new way of doing things. So we just want to make sure it flows, smoothly. That I'm greatly honored by having our keynote speaker, which I'm going to, his name is Rob Rose. He's a person I've known for the last almost 30 years.
Oh no.
Oh no, I think Conrad cut out while introducing. All right, thank you everyone for bearing with us. Let's see if Conrad's Wi-Fi comes back. Conrad, are you there? You're muted right now.
I just lost you, or you lost me. I apologize. Anyway, I was just going to, yeah.
All right, you're back.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Can you hear me? I'm back. Yes. Okay. Sorry, I don't know where I left, but that's okay. I'm going to introduce our keynote speaker, Rob Rose. He's a fellow Rotarian, and he has a tremendous background in the community engagement. In the 1970s, as an exchange student from Rotary, he went to Calcutta, India, and he just experienced a great, rich experience of the developing country of Nepal. So he developed interests, and he's been always very much involved in the community internationally. So when he became a Rotarian, came to this country, and he started his own foundation, the Rose International Fund for Children, working with his wife. And so they did great, wonderful things for how many years? The last 30 years or so. And as a result, when he came back to the United States, he developed the idea of international playground in the downtown Bellevue Park. It's called Inspiration Playground, which is a playground that is very inclusive, that allows all ability individuals that can get people to use and enjoy and being together. People with disability and average normal people, they all together, be playing together in outdoor activities, outdoor playground environment. So this partnership is strictly Rob's effort, inspiration, and they work hard and they have ultimately, eventually built this inspiration playground, and which is unique in the United States, basically. So I want to thank him for taking the time to speak to us, because he's an inspiration to people like us who want to be civically engaged, make an impact, make a difference in the community. And it's something that, again, he has a vision, he has a passion for, and it took him that many years, culminating in something that impact us. Doesn't matter who we are, what our ability are, but he, has set his goal on it, and he has a purpose, and he has the result now to show. So without further ado, I want to introduce again Rob Rose to give us his keynote speech. Welcome. Thank you, Rob.
Yeah, thank you, Conrad. Thanks for that introduction. And if you want to pass hosting over to me, I guess, right, Chris? If you pass hosting over to me, then I can share my screen.
So Conrad.
Yes, I will. I'm doing that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Rob Rose.
Okay.
Make host. Now you are it.
Okay.
All right.
And I'm going to admit a few people here, because now that's my responsibility, I think. So let me share my screen. Okay. Okay, hang on, Gary. My monitor is not sharing.
Yeah, because it's only showing your main screen.
Right. Okay, well, let's see if I start from, okay, there we go. And now it says this is not sharing. So hold on a sec.
No problem.
Okay, let's try this.
There we go.
Now I believe it's sharing.
Yeah.
Just let me move to slide number 2. I just want to try that. Okay. Okay, I think I have to click this button. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, well, and let me just collapse all of the pictures here, except for, I move the pictures over. I like seeing a few faces. Okay, there we go. Okay, great. Well, as Conrad has introduced, my name, good afternoon, everybody. I'm really excited to be your keynote speaker for the Civic Engagement Conference. My name is Robert Rose, and as Conrad said, my name is Rob, and I think all of you know me well enough now, you can address me as Rob. So my presentation today is focused around how life can turn on a dime, and how going out of your comfort zone can help create positive change in the world. So as Conrad has done a little bit of the introduction, let me give a little bit of my professional and civic engagement background. I'm owner of Brandt Photographers, which is a family portrait studio. It's been in Bellevue since 1949. So 71 years. The studio is actually the longest running business in Bellevue. And it was my mom and dad's studio, and I took over from my mom and dad back in 1985. So also I've been really active in my Rotary Club, which with Conrad is in my club as well, Bellevue Rotary Club. It's about 200 members. And I've been a member since 1986, right after I bought the studio from my mom and dad. I joined Bellevue Rotary Club. And since 1997, I've been involved in projects in Nepal and working with Rotary. And then in 2006, I started my own 501c3 nonprofit I founded with my wife, Gina, the Rose International Fund for Children. And we help kids with disabilities in the country of Nepal. So let's talk a little bit about that phrase, turn on a dime. So it's a very old, old idiom that's been used for, I don't know, probably 100 years here in the United States. And it means to pivot, pivot, change your focus. Something that happens in your life that causes you to change your behavior abruptly. And for me, that was a specific phone call, which I'll explain in a little bit. But let me digress. And as Conrad had mentioned, something in my life really, this moment in my life, it changed my world and my world perspective specifically. And that was being a Rotary Youth Exchange student when I was 16 in 1974 and 1975, where I was in Calcutta, India. So I spent 8 months in Calcutta, and I live with Indian families. There's my two main host families. You can see me, I'm the tall guy, the tall white guy. And actually in the one on the left, you can see I was wearing very stylish yellow pants. Those were quite the rage back in those days, or at least I thought they were. Anyway, so I spent 8 months in Calcutta, and I went to school. I stayed with Indian families. I really became part of the fabric of Calcutta life, and I felt so comfortable there. And I rode the bus to school every day, and I hung on the outside of the bus, because inside the bus it was really crowded. So once you got inside the bus, it was tough to get outside. So I would hang on the outside of the bus. It was so crowded, but that was just part of who I was and what I did at that time at the age of 16. And when I would go outside of our flat to go to school every day, you would see the contrast, that like really dramatic contrast between rich and poor. You would see like wealthy mansions that were there behind stone walls with glass sharded tops, so you couldn't climb over the walls. And then you would see people living in front of those walls. They were living, poor families and individuals, they were living kind of day to day, meal to meal. So you can imagine what kind of impact that had on somebody that's 16 years old from North Seattle, and really made me think about, why was I born into, relative comfort in a middle-class family in North Seattle, and why are other people living in abject poverty? And really got me thinking about, like, what was my responsibility as a human being in this world? And that I myself had a responsibility to do what I could do in my life, my limited lifespan, to help others. And so that experience in 1994 continues to shape my world perspective to this day. Okay, now to the phone call. So back in 1996, I read this article, Nepal's Children, an adventure in the Seattle Times travel section. And the article was about the woman you see featured in the picture, Olga Murray. She was about 70 years old at that time in 1997. The article was a really compelling article. And I read that article. She and her organization, based out of Sausalito, California, they were helping about 500 kids in the Kathmandu Valley at that time. The article really motivated me, and I got to thinking, what, maybe I should call and volunteer as a photographer for that organization. And I thought, it was pretty kind of an exciting concept. I've never had that idea before. And my first thought was, well, what if I call and what if they say no? And then another part of me said, well, they could say no, but what if they say yes? This might be a really important phone call. I mean, I had that thought. I had that thought. I had kind of a premonition that it was an important phone call to make. And I made that phone call. And I talked to Olga when I called, and I asked, do you have a need for a photographer to come over to Nepal to take photographs of your kids and programs, to help with your marketing and things like that? And she said, Rob, we need somebody, and we've been thinking about that. So we'd love to have you come over and volunteer for us. So early 1997, I went over to Nepal, and that was my first experience meeting Olga. And that was the that was kind of the hub of everything that I've done, was that phone call. So let me tell you a little bit about Nepal. For some people a lot of people think it's part of China or it's part of India. It's its own independent country. It's a democracy. It's located on the southern side by India and on the eastern western side, and then on the northern border, it's bounded by China. And Nepal is a really unique topographical place because down on the Indian border, it's sea level. And within about 125-mile span, it goes from sea level to 29,035 feet at the top of Mount Everest. And so you can imagine, the Himalayan mountain range borders that China side. So within 125 miles, that's like here from Seattle to Vancouver, BC. Within that short span, going from sea level up to, mountainous heights, what kind of topographical, interesting flora and fauna there is in this country. Also the challenges of infrastructure in a country that has such diverse topography, like building roads, bridges, things like that. It's really challenging in a place like Nepal. Okay, I went over for the first time, 1997. And there's Olga again. I was there in Nepal, and her organization had a boys' house and a girls' house, and they helped kids that either parents were in prison or they didn't have parents, or parents were alcoholic, or they had a disability. She helped underprivileged children and gave them a safe home to stay in and all the support structure, including education. They went to local schools and things like that. So this picture shows the girls' house there. And you can see next to Olga is a young woman in blue, and that's Sita Giawali. And she's the older sister of the girl next to her, Nirmala Giawali. And both of these young women were born blind. So there you see Nirmala in 1997. And she was quite an engaging young lady at age 14, really talkative, really inquisitive, really curious. And so I want you to remember this picture and remember Nirmala, because she's going to come up in a little later in the presentation. Also on that first trip, I met a gentleman named Mr. R.R. Pandey. He just goes by R.R. And when I met Olga for that first time and I was there on that trip, I asked her, do you know anybody in Rotary in Nepal? Because I'm in Bellevue Rotary Club. I've been in Bellevue Rotary Club for a long time. And I knew that they had international grant funding for projects. And I thought, well, maybe if I could meet with some Rotarians, we could figure out some sort of projects to do together. And Olga said to me, I know just the guy. I met this nice Nepali man one year, many years ago, like 10 years before I visited. She had broken her leg trekking. She used to go trekking in Nepal every year, and she'd broken her leg very badly. And she was in a full leg cast. And she was flying back to San Francisco, and she sat next to R.R. Pandey and developed a friendship. What she didn't know was that R.R. had seen her in the waiting area in the airport, and he is the general ticketing agent and has a travel agency. He's the general ticketing agent for Singapore Airlines. And he called right at that time, and he saw Olga, and he had her upgraded to first class and sat next to her in first class. So because Olga broke her leg in like 1990, I got a chance to meet R.R. Pandey in 1997. And we started doing Rotary projects together. We're really close friends. I talk to him all the time. He's been my mentor. He's been my guide. He's helped me with so many Rotary projects, like $2 million in Rotary projects. And also he's the executive chair of my implementing partner, which you'll find out about in a bit. So it's we've done too many projects, Rotary projects together to detail all of them, but one of them stands out. Let me share that a little bit about that. This was a project that we did from 2009 to 2012. And we got a major Rotary grant, about a $330,000 grant from Rotary, the Rotary Foundation. And I had envisioned, I came up with this crazy idea, and RR bought into it, and then other people started to get involved. And then we did what's called a disability awareness campaign. So the idea was to change the general public's attitude about disability in Nepal. There's a real heavy societal stigma surrounding disability in Nepal. So you're thought to be suffering from a past life sin or a curse. And when I found out about that, it really rubbed me the wrong way. It's like, just not just at all. So using Rotary as the vehicle to enact change, we developed this social marketing campaign. And J. Walter Thompson is a really big advertising firm, and they had, they're the fifth largest in the world. So they have a Kathmandu office, and the managing director is a Rotarian. So we partnered with J. Walter Thompson to design a social marketing campaign, like multimedia, multimodal, everything you would do to traditionally, but also non-traditional methods as well. Posters, flyers, billboards, street theater, sports festivals, sponsorship, television, radio, and newspaper advertising. And the idea was to change that perception about disability, that they're not cursed or suffering from a past life sin. And if you give somebody with a disability education and opportunity, they'll just thrive, they'll blossom, they'll be as productive and happy a citizen as anybody that doesn't have a disability. So our slogan was, "We are all able." And it's really important that when you're doing a slogan in 2 different languages, in 2 different cultures, that it says the right thing in both Nepali and English, and it does. So I'm going to play for you a short video. This was one of the television commercials that played throughout Nepal, 2009 to 2012. Okay. Thanks, Gary.
सार्वजनिक स्थल अपाङ्ग मैत्री हुनुपर्दछ। अपाङ्गता भएका व्यक्तिहरूलाई सहयोग गर्नु हामी सबैको सामाजिक कर्तव्य हो। हाम्रो सानो प्रयासले पनि उनीहरूको जीवनमा ठूलो परिवर्तन ल्याउन सक्छ। याद राखौं, हामी सबै सक्षम छौं।
Okay. So that was Rajesh Amal. So he volunteered. He's Nepal's #1 movie star. So we had him as our project spokesperson. So he was on billboards, flyers, posters, everywhere, newspaper, and radio, television. He was the face of and voice of our campaign. That was a really, really big project. And I came up with a concept for that in 2005, and it wasn't finished until 2012. So it was like a jump off a cliff kind of a project, really. I mean, so many fortuitous things happen along the road on that project that help it come to fruition. It was a big idea. It was a great idea that was at the right time in Nepal. So, people were ready to receive that information that people with disabilities aren't you know, shouldn't be discriminated against, and that they should have the same opportunities as people without disabilities. So along the way through my Rotary projects, I also, I wanted to find a way to continue supporting certain projects that we had done through Rotary. And I felt like starting a 501c3 was a great opportunity to do that. Started here in the United States. So in 2006, we launched the Rose International Fund for Children, or TRIFC. Now, if you jam TRIFC together, that's terrific. So that's our tagline nowadays is lifting those left behind. And so the idea is to be able to raise funds and do projects in Nepal as an independent organization. I'm still closely intertwined with Rotary in Nepal, and that's been a really great way to find reliable, trustworthy people to work with within Nepal. There's over 100 Rotary clubs in Nepal, and also Rotaract, which is like a young person's aged 18 to 30, is they're Rotaractors, and there's like over 100 Rotaract clubs in Nepal as well. So we work with Rotary and Rotaract quite closely through TRIFC. So what does TRIFC do? Well, I'll just detail a few things. We have a lot of different programs and projects. We're small, all volunteer here in the US, and I have implementing staff in Nepal. So we have currently have 50 sponsorships for students with disabilities. The kids that you see in these pictures, these are all sponsored students of ours, and they're all deaf, hard of hearing students. But we have students that are blind and visually impaired, that have physical disabilities and developmental disabilities. A program that we were ready to launch this spring, but unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we have to put this project on hold. But it's called Touch, Sense, and Learn for blind and visually impaired students, and also students who are with blindness and have multiple disabilities. So the idea behind this project is to provide tactile educational tools to visually impaired students so that they can touch and feel and really understand what these concepts that they're reading about in school are. You can imagine if you just you're reading about geometry in math class, and you read about a triangle or a cone shape or other geometric shapes, but if you have no way to tactilely feel those shapes, it's just a word on a page. It has no meaning at all. You can answer the questions on the exams, but you don't know what those things are. And it's virtually everything in their life that they're reading about in a book, whether it's, you see in the picture there, at the top left, there's some animal shapes. You can see the anatomy, the mannequin, the anatomy of mannequin in the middle. So what is a lung? What is a heart shaped like? What is your kidney shaped like? They always say kidneys are like a bean-shaped organ. So is it the size of a kidney bean? It's no idea. So that program, the tactile learning educational materials, that's going to launch as soon as we can get back on task there after the pandemic allows. Another really important program that we were in the midst of doing before the pandemic was to provide reusable sanitary protection kits to girl students with disabilities. And as important as the kits are the hygiene workshop that we give. So they come together. So they get the kit as well as the hygiene education. And for students that are deaf, hard of hearing, we provide the training in sign language. And for blind and visually impaired students, we provide materials in Braille. So like I was talking about with disability, about the societal stigma, that is also really difficult stigma for women's menstrual cycles. And so, and for girl students who who need, menstrual hygiene kits like these, it's really difficult to get them. They can't afford them, number one. It's kind of, there's an embarrassing stigma attached to it. And if you're a blind, visually impaired student living in a school hostel, you don't have any way to go to the store to access them. So this is a super important project. I'm so appreciative of my staff and my board here who have been so supportive on this project. We've distributed 2,500 kits to date, and we have plans to distribute about another 2,500 more. Really important program. We've shipped over about 20,000 Braille books and started Nepal's first Braille library. So the US Postal Service ships Braille books internationally for free. So a number of years ago, I got so many donations of Braille books from Braille libraries around the country, and we had them all sent to one central location, and then we packaged them up and had 8 pallets of Braille books that got shipped to Nepal. We have we provide surgeries and prosthetics, and we've done that for over 100 plus students. That's Jebika, who you see there. And Jebika is a really sweet little girl with disabilities. So she had a surgery a couple of years ago. And I'm so lucky. I mean, really, I get to know all of these kids and get to see them through their growth and development. I'm one lucky guy. So remember I talked about Nirmala and at age 14 in 1997? Well, in 2014, we launched ADSON, Ability Development Society of Nepal. And Nirmala, along through the years, she became a Fulbright Plus scholar and studied for 2 years at Colorado State University. She returned to Nepal and was a cultural trainer for the International Office of Migration. But around 2013, she decided to quit that job, and I snapped her up because I wanted her to be our executive director. And ADSON is TRIFC's implementing partner. And so I work really closely with Nirmala. We think the same way about disability, and she's a dynamo. She's a really important person in my life and in the life of helping so many people with disabilities in Nepal. Okay, on to Inspiration Playground, like Conrad was mentioning there. So I'm going to tell you how Nepal and the Inspiration Playground are connected. And without my work in Nepal, Inspiration Playground would not have happened. So just to kind of locate for you where Inspiration Playground is, it's in the downtown Bellevue Park. And that park is like the jewel of Bellevue, centrally located between the Main Street businesses and Bellevue Square. It's a really great, well-used park and playground now. There's another aerial picture. And you can see over in that far corner as you look down towards Maidenbower Bay, that's where the playground is. Okay, where did the inspiration from Inspiration Playground come from? Plus, the secret sauce recipe. You are sworn to secrecy. Strangely enough, the inspiration for Inspiration Playground all started with an argument. And you can see me there. I look a lot younger in 2006, and I do not have gray hair at that time. But there I am at the Rotary Club of Kopendol meeting. And sitting next to me is my really close friend, Fran. And Fran and I, we'd helped connect this Rotary Club with a group of kids with disabilities at an organization called Disability New Life Center, DNC. And so we were attending that meeting, and after the meeting, they had a committee meeting about DNC. Here, I'll show you there's a group of kids. whom I still know most of these kids, even all these years later. So we had kids and volunteers, and we had the Copendole Rotarians are there in that picture as well. Okay, so they had this committee meeting and about DNC and how they could best impact the kids. And all of a sudden an argument broke out. I mean, they were yelling. I was taken aback because usually Nepalis are pretty calm, quiet people, but they were really passionate and arguing and yelling back and forth about it. And I was startled to begin with, but so there they are. They are, they were painting and fixing up the building. They got personally involved in those kids with disabilities. Now, are you ready to learn the idea what happened when I found out about how passionate those Rotarians were? That the kind of the magic secret sauce is that when you get people with and without disabilities together, that this perceptual shift takes place very, very quickly. And I've seen it happen so many times. I've seen it happen virtually every time I bring a volunteer, an adult volunteer or a kid volunteer. He or she could be Nepali, he or she could be American volunteers over, that the initial response people have is when they meet a kid with disabilities, if they haven't interacted with people with disabilities before, they kind of feel pity. But within a really short period of time, like 20 minutes, if they get in and interact with that person, with that child, their perception will shift. And within about 20 to 30 minutes, they'll forget all about the disability. They're thinking about that kid's capabilities, not the disability anymore. And so that was the secret. That was how the concept for Inspiration Playground came about, getting people with and without disabilities together. Okay, I'm going to play a short video. And so this was actually done locally for the city of Bellevue and for our campaign. So it's going to explain how the connection with the city came about and how the playground was built.
Rotary had such a strong vision on bringing a place that both children and adults can come in and be side by side with typically abled and people with different challenges. And it's going to be a space that is really special.
Not a lot of communities have what we're going to be having here in Bellevue, and it matters to the people we serve. And those of whom, like the Rotarians, that have contributed vitally to this project.
I think it's very representative of the area. The area is a very giving, caring city.
To have something like this that is so inclusive and so accessible to everyone, I think is so crucial from a community aspect.
Rob basically introduced the concept of universal accessibility. The idea is that everybody, no matter what the age and what the ability, will be able to enjoy the playground. I've been working in Nepal since 1997, and I was working with a lot of kids with disabilities. What I noticed was that everybody's initial response to meeting somebody with a disability was kind of a pity. But as soon as they started interacting with the kids with disabilities, you could see this perceptual shift take place, and they forgot the disability altogether. So I wanted to try to develop a project where I could incorporate something I'd learned in Nepal. And the opportunity presented itself with the Inspiration Playground and Sensory Gardens in the downtown Bellevue Park.
My son Landon is on the autism spectrum. So if we go to a playground that just has monkey bars to play on, he can't utilize those. And so then he's usually sitting at a table. So having an inclusion spot is great because then he can have the more typical childhood experience versus feeling isolated from the rest of the group.
As parents, that's what we hope for. You know, we want Ben to be included. We want our son to be embraced and included.
I have a child with special needs. My best friends don't. but their best friend does. And so I'm getting all emotional. So even if you're not impacted directly, you know somebody that is, and having a place for their child to go just to be able to be a kid is just a blessing.
It should happen because you should have like lots of fun playing with kids with different abilities, like kids with Down syndrome, kids in wheelchairs, and kids who have walkers.
I think that's the ultimate aim of this facility and something I'm really looking forward to seeing.
And I think that message that we're sending to businesses, to the cities, to our communities is so crucial. And as parents of a kiddo that has some challenges, we appreciate that. And we thank everybody involved for getting this up off the ground.
Okay. So that kind of gives a good comprehensive overview of the playground and how it got started. But really, it came from that little inspiration, right? That getting people with and without disabilities together can change perceptions and have change in so many lives. So that little idea, that seed of an idea, I found out I was going to be president of Bellevue Rotary Club in 2012. And before, I knew about 3 years ahead of time that I was going to be president. So I got to thinking, what, like it said, what could I incorporate from what I learned in Nepal and incorporate it into Bellevue in my own community. So I got to thinking about that. Actually, I went for a bike ride along the Sammamish River Trail, and I saw a park in Woodinville, a riverfront trail, and it had a big rotary wheel in the ground, and it had lots of corporate sponsors, all these sponsorship tiles, right? And I asked the Rotary Club of Woodinville, how'd you do that project? And they told me it was this kind of private, private public and service club sponsorship partner program. So that gave me the thought that maybe I could approach our city of Bellevue, and see what kind of project we might be able to do and how we might be able to tie in that disability concept. So the first person I went in and made an appointment with Patrick Ferran, and he's head of the City of Bellevue Parks Department. And he suggested that Rotary work with the City of Bellevue, and that we would raise funds to redo the minimal playground that was in the downtown Bellevue Park. It was, when the park was inaugurated, that little tiny playground they had, it was meant to be a placeholder, was never meant to be there permanently. So I thought that was an awesome idea. I was so excited about that. And I took that concept to my Rotary Club. Like, I hadn't told anybody about this project, this big idea. It was a really big idea. This was like a $5.5 million project. And my club had never done anything on that scale. It was a scary amount of money to try to raise. And it took a lot of consensus building and a lot of talking, but to like past presidents from my club and future presidents, but everybody was positive about it. And after getting my approval from my club, we started developing the project, and we gathered in, expertise from both the City of Bellevue and from within my club. These were like instrumental people that were so critical to the completion of this project. Initially, I want to say I went in after I talked to my club and I got buy-in from my club and my board of directors. I talked to each of the city council members. And Conrad, I don't know if you remember that conversation we had way back when, but I wanted to talk to each of them individually. And just like with my people I talked to in my Rotary Club, they were like all in. They were like totally excited and ready to, let's work on this project together. So that was one factor, was I think why this project was successful, was it was like the right idea at the right time. So, but it was really big. It was a jump off a cliff project. Again, where you really have a lot more opportunity to like fall flat on your face and fail. But also the opportunity could be there where you could be successful. Here you see some of the team from the city. They were really great, a great team to work with. Terry Smith and Pam Fairman and so many people at the City of Bellevue that helped make it happen. From my own club, I had two people that I would not have been successful without these two people. Pat Naslow, who was a detail person, really helped a lot on the city, county, state and federal grant side and talking to legislators. She was the detail person that I needed because I'm like a big picture person, as you might have guessed. And then Liz Swanson from my Rotary Club, she had capital campaign experience, nonprofit capital campaign experience. Everybody was a volunteer within our club. You know, there was no paid staff. So I felt that within the 200 members of our club that we had the expertise to make this happen. We had people that had money to donate. If they didn't have money, they might have connections with somebody, a corporation, a foundation, somebody that did have funding that they could donate. We have the heads of major construction companies in our club. Every discipline is located, you know, is part of our club. So I had a big advantage. And really, everybody in our club got involved in this project. It was a total club project. Here you can see the groundbreaking ceremony. Here's a few pictures. I mean, all these days were exciting days for me, but there was a lot of scary times too. There was a lot of times when we might have failed. But if there's a big rock in the river and you're a fish, you know, you got to go around the rock. You can't be stopped by the rock. So as much as we could, we kept trying to go around those rocks, go around the obstacles, and keep pitching, keep trying to succeed. That was exciting. Construction was going to start in July 2016. This was opening day in June of 2017. And this was the really big check we presented to the City of Bellevue for over $3 million. So that took a lot of people. I mean, it took a lot of people to make this happen. So I may have had that seed of an idea, that inspiration, but getting key people to come along and join in your journey on a big idea like this is critical. Here's a quote from Pam Fairman about the playground. It's like the most best used playground. Of course, it's not being used right now, unfortunately, but there will be a day when we'll all be back and out and interacting together and the playground will be used again. I have a video coming up in a minute. Let's see. I can't quite tell exactly where it is. Oh, okay, great. I think I know where it is now in my presentation. Here you can see the playground in use. Well, thank you to everyone. My undying thanks go to everyone, including Conrad and the other city council members, the City of Bellevue staff, and they were just so positive about this project and supported it start to finish. Okay, I've got kind of a crazy video to show you, because how do you start a big picture project like that? How do you get something like this started? And I've been so fortunate. I had this project, really a big idea project, and then that disability awareness campaign. And my other really big project I'm hoping to implement is that Touch Sense Learn, to change the education for blind students in Nepal across the country. So that's still yet to come. But how do you create a how do you create the consensus? How do you get people to join you on this kind of a movement? This was a movement kind of a project. So coming up next is a short video that illustrates an important concept. And when I saw this video, it was mid 2000, like 2006, 2007, it really impacted me about how to accomplish a large project like this. So watch and learn.
If you've learned a lot about leadership and making a movement, then let's watch a movement happen start to finish in under 3 minutes and dissect some lessons. First, of course, a leader needs the guts to stand alone and look ridiculous. But what he's doing is so simple, it's almost instructional. This is key. You must be easy to follow. Now here comes the first follower with a crucial role. He publicly shows everyone else how to follow. Notice how the leader embraces him as an equal. So it's not about the leader anymore. It's about them, plural. Notice how he's calling to his friends to join in. So it takes guts to be a first follower. You stand out and you brave ridicule yourself. Being a first follower is an underappreciated form of leadership. The first follower transforms a lone nut into a leader. If the leader is the flint, the first follower is the spark that really makes the fire. Now here's the second follower. This is a turning point. It's proof the first has done well. Now it's not a lone nut and it's not two nuts. 3 is a crowd and a crowd is news. A movement must be public. Make sure outsiders see more than just the leader. Everyone needs to see the followers because new followers emulate followers, not the leader. Now here come 2 more people, then 3 more immediately. Now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point, and now we have a movement. As more people jump in, it's no longer risky. If they were on the fence before, there's no reason not to join in now. They won't stand out, they won't be ridiculed, and they will be part of the in crowd if they hurry. And over the next minute, you'll see the rest who prefer to stay part of the crowd, because eventually they'd be ridiculed for not joining. And ladies and gentlemen, that is how a movement is made. So let's recap what we've learned. If you are a version of the shirtless dancing guy, all alone, remember the importance of nurturing your first few followers as equals, making everything clearly about the movement, not you. Be public, be easy to follow. But the biggest lesson here, did you catch it? Leadership is overglorified. Yes, it started with the shirtless guy, and he'll get all the credit, but you saw what really happened. It was the first follower that transformed a lone nut into a leader. There's no movement without the first follower. See, we're told that we all need to be leaders, but that would be really ineffective. The best way to make a movement, if you really care, is to courageously follow and show others how to follow. When you find a lone nut doing something great, have the guts to be the first person to stand up and join in.
Okay. So I showed that to my son, Kerry, and he said, hey, Dad, I think that's at the Gorge. So I think that may have been filmed here in Washington State. But that was a really important concept for me. Thank you, Conrad. That was just such an important concept that how to get a movement like that started. And it really takes lots of people. And for me, I mean, I was so, that premonition I had when I made that first phone call back in 1996, after I read that article, everything started for me with that phone call. And if I hadn't made that phone call, you know, all of the impact we've had in Nepal, helping people with disabilities, that would not have happened. All the friends and close associates and like family for me that I have in Nepal would not have happened. And all of the impact it's had on my Rotary Club and other people in our community and with Inspiration Playground would not have happened. So I'll ask you this question: what call will you make and what movement will you start? So thanks again for having me. It's been wonderful, and it's hard for me to condense my 23 years of life into that, but I hope it was worthwhile for you. And let me stop my share. And there's 3 more people I couldn't admit, unfortunately, but they're getting admitted now. And let me pass the hosting on.
All right. So did you pass the host to me?
Hang on, there's still like more people who were trying to join.
Oh, no problem.
Okay.
Yes, we're giving you a virtual round of applause.
Thank you. So now. It's not allowing me to do it. It just says rename or add profile picture. So I go to my own name on the participant list?
No, go to my name on the participants list.
Oh, your name. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Got it.
All
okay,
right.
You're on.
So all right. So Kevin will be the one controlling the deck. Kevin, did I pass it properly to you?
Yeah, I think so. Let me share screen.
So thank you so much, Rob, for that wonderful keynote. It was really interesting, and I love listening to the stories.
Great. Thanks for having me. So I'll sign off now. Good luck, everybody. Good luck in your lives, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the weather. All right. So if you guys are all interested in, engaging your community, the Bellevue Mayoral Internship is an opportunity for students to pursue their interests and passions in civic engagement. Kevin, next slide. So the goal of this internship is to provide a safe environment for students to bring their own community projects to life, and it teaches interns what it means to be civic leaders of their own community. My experience in this internship has been rewarding both professionally and personally. I've had the pleasure of working with our wonderful advisors and also facilitating positive change in our community. I've grown as a leader through this experience, but what makes me happiest is that I got the opportunity to mentor my peers and see all of you guys grow as well. So I'm not going to take up too much time. As the retiring chairperson of this internship, it's my pleasure to introduce our new chairman, Jared Hu.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jared Hu. I think Rob's presentation to us was really great, first of all. I think it really gives us a glimpse of what the power of taking action in the community can do. And I was really inspired. I succeeded Kristen's spot as the chair of the mayoral internship for this new school year. And Kristen has done a phenomenal job as last year's chair, and I learned a lot from her. And as she continues her journey on as a UW biology student, I will try my best to do my duty and carry on her legacy. The mayoral internship has been a wonderful program that taught me and many of my peers the value of civic engagement and community empowerment. The Path Foundation offers opportunities and guidance for civically minded students to make noticeable changes in the community through a wide array of student-led projects and connecting with like-minded peers. We believe that each and every student is capable of making real changes in the society, and we equip them with the right tools and techniques and experiences to do so. We can learn and apply various knowledge and skills through hands-on learning experience, civics, leadership, teamwork, public speaking, marketing, event planning, etc. In the past, our interns have learned to work with government officials and various nonprofits to educate students on civic duties such as voting and census, established a network of high school civic engagement clubs to improve student civic literacy, and planned and organized large-sized conferences such as this one, and much more. Currently, we have 5 student-led projects: Civic Club Network, Maga Media, Bloodworks, Digital Platform, and Global Goals. So each of these projects are by a project leader, and I will be seeing each one of them. Project leaders, if I call your name, please turn on your camera and just say hi to everyone. The project of the Civic Club Network is, the leader of the Civic Club Network is Kevin Yang. Hi, Kevin. And the leader of the Global Goals Project is Lara Yao. And the leader of the blog and media project is Melissa Lin. And the leader of the digital platform project is Vincent Zhou. The leader of the Bloodworks project is Richard Yang. All right, next slide, please. Next, project leader Kevin Yang will discuss with everyone here the details of the Civic Club project, so we can better understand how the works we're doing as a team is organized and the way students can be engaged within these opportunities. Kevin, I'll pass the mic to you.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Yes, coming across clear? 5x5? Okay, great. So as Jared said, my name is Kevin Yang, and I am currently the project leader for the Civics Network. So first, I want to start by introducing what Civics Club actually is. After joining the internship, we all watched a documentary called American Creed. And in this documentary, it talked a lot about people with different backgrounds, with different ethnicities, cultures, families, family structures, and how their experiences were molded in America. And if you don't know, American Creed is just a blanket term that means the statement that defines American identity. A lot of the information that we received from watching the video was new for us. We learned a lot about how families struggled and how policies and social issues led to the hardships, especially for minority families. And we also realized that a lot of what was shown in the movie was quintessential for our understanding of ourselves and the climate of America, yet we barely learned about it at school. So this is what we wanted to change. We wanted to start by teaching the concept of American Creed through current event topics and things that students are actually interested in learning about. And so we do that with youth-led discussions and service activities at the high schools that we've been established in. And this also goes back to, I guess you could call it the mission statement for Pathway Foundation, which is advancing civic engagement through education and philanthropy. So right now, I just want to go ahead and shout out the current teams that we have here. So if you feel inclined, please turn on your video when I call your name. So from Redmond High School, we have our Redmond High School Civics Club led by Claire Ong. And then we have Newport High School led by Aaron Xie, Lake Washington High School led by Sunny Kulkarni, International School led by Kira Wong, Interlake High School led by Eric Ma, International Community School led by Eric Shi, Eastlake High School led by Simon Wang, and Bellevue High School led by Stella Fong. So what have we done so far in the summer? In the summer, we hosted 2 discussion forums on topics that club leaders thought were interesting and necessary. The first one we did was on ethnic struggles in America. We delved deep into the model minority myth, BIPOC struggles, and ethnic portrayal in media. All of these things were decided on by the club leaders, and we all worked together to make a presentation with resources on the history and education. The second one was on the Black Lives Matter movement. We talked a lot about how people have different sides and different opinions about Black Lives Matter and how these opinions were formed based on the history or what's relevant in the media. And for our current project, we are working on a core curriculum. So we want to create a centralized repository of curriculum so that all of the resources and documents we as clubs use to teach can be there for anyone who needs it. We also want to create lesson plans so that others interested in starting up clubs can do so smoothly and without any kinks that we've had in the beginnings. Also, we want to maintain the freedom of clubs to talk about the topics that they care about related to civics. Having a core curriculum doesn't necessarily mean that every topic will be decided for them. Rather, they all go into a blanket unit of what we choose. So if you're interested in starting a civics club at your high school or joining the internship, I'll go ahead and talk to you guys about how you can. So our application process starts at our website. So if you visit the website at pathwayus.org and scroll down to the bottom, there'll be a section that says Join Pathway Foundation here. And then you scroll to the bottom and you see the part. And you click it. And then you'll be led to a Google form that says Become an Intern. All you have to do is fill out the information in this form. And the form is here too. So I'll go ahead and copy this link into the messaging part of this so I can send it all to you easily. So after that, you'll receive an email from Pathway Foundation, read the information in the document, and then respond to the email stating you're interested in agreement to the internship rules. And then Jared will get in contact with you about starting a project, assuming an officer position, or just going into the internship. I'll pass it back to Jared.
Right, so this structure right here is how our internship is organized. We begin with the advisors, who are the helpful adults that guide us on our path to learn more about civic engagement. And they are Conrad Lee, Steve Chen, Ben Yen, and John Spady. And then they are in contact with me, who is the internship chair, and also the clubs coordinator, who is Kevin. And we help name the clubs and the project. And the projects, they are in contact with me, so I can help them basically plan out their structure and basically guide them on whatever they hope to accomplish by a certain timeline. And Kristen, I'll pass back to you.
All right, thank you so much. So hopefully that gives you guys a good overview of what our internship is like. If you guys are interested, again, feel free to visit our website and apply. We admit students on a quarterly basis now. So every September, January, and March is when to expect, responses and interviews, as well as, the entire, getting in contact with us. I'm going to pass this over to Karen Roper, who is going to tell you guys give us the talk about how college admissions is going to work during this whole COVID pandemic, as well as some helpful tips in general about how to get into your dream college.
Okay, thanks, Kristen. And I'm going to share my screen. Okay, did my screen come through?
Yep, we see it.
Okay, so I'm Karen Roper, and I have been working with kids applying to college for about 15 years. My son graduated from Interlake in 2012 and then went to Harvard and then Yale Law School, and he's now a lawyer, which is hard to believe. But I started out as a volunteer, just helping, let's see, I have to go back here. Just helping kids think through what they wanted to do. And the more I learned about applying to college, the more it became a job. So now it's a job, and I work as a consultant helping kids apply to college and figure out what makes sense for them to stress in their applications and what schools are looking for that matches what they want in the school. So things have changed because of the pandemic, and mostly that colleges have less information to rely on, which means what they have left is going to be emphasized more. So I took my presentation that I've done in the past and took a look at what it said and went, what has changed. I read a lot of articles on this subject, and one thing I noticed is that the colleges don't necessarily agree on what's different, but certain things were true across the board, like the test scores. Some people managed to take the ACT or the SAT tests, but most people did not. And so colleges, by and large, just decided they are not going to take test scores this year, or if you took a test, you can submit it, but you're being compared to people who did not take a test, so it's going to be emphasized a lot less than it would be otherwise. And I think the exceptions to that might be things like that. If you got a super high SAT or ACT score, you might go ahead and submit it, and it might actually, you know, push you to the front of the line in terms of who will be admitted. So we also had an issue with grades. You probably all knew that in the spring of this year, most of the local schools, and not all of them, but went to a pass-fail or an AF grading system. And colleges are aware that this happened pretty much across the country, and so they don't feel like they can use second semester junior year or senior year for the current seniors as part of the evaluation of how a student does and fits. So there's a lot more emphasis on freshman through fall of junior year. Normally, if you have test or grades from freshman through senior year, first semester senior year, the schools look at the growth. How, you know, did you get better over the years? They don't get to do that so much this year. So if you had a bad freshman year or a bad sophomore year, you're going to have to explain that a bit in the additional information space. So let's see. First, it wanted to change screens all the time, and now I can't make it change at all. Okay, so the decision metrics during COVID. You might be missing not only the SAT or ACT scores, a semester or two of grades, and colleges are going to have to make do without those grades and without the extracurriculars. Oh, that's funny. Now it wants to turn again. I am not the most technologically adept person in the world. So let me see if I can get back to the right space. Okay. And you're also going to be missing a lot of your extracurriculars. A lot of the extracurriculars, people have figured out how to move some things online. I know a lot of band is happening online, of course, not marching band. Sports are delayed or less than what they normally are. So most of the ways that people have normally distinguished themselves from one another are not readily available right now. And yet there's a quote from a USA Today article that most highly intelligent and qualified students get rejected. It's not like they get rejected from everything, but most of them get some rejections. And even with perfect test scores and grades, you can get rejected from an application because they're looking for a lot more than just the smartest kids. You have to think of applying to college as being the college class that a college is putting together. It's being like a bell-shaped curve. And in that bell-shaped curve, we have a lot more than just grades and test scores. We have activities. We have what do you bring to the school. Schools are looking for people that are going to make them look good in the long run. So the idea is to stand out. What makes you special versus what makes you just a stereotype? So stereotypes, I mean, I know there are a lot of Asian kids in this organization, and so not to, you know, make it into a racist thing, but there are certain stereotypes that go with no matter who you are. And some of the stereotypes that you deal with, especially smart kids in the Bellevue area, because we have a lot of smart kids on the east side of Lake Washington, are their academic focus. They tend to apply for schools emphasizing math, science, computer coding, anything STEM. They tend to have a musical background, and the major instruments they play are piano, violin, viola, or cello. They do sports, but the sports are usually tennis, table tennis, badminton, swimming, track. Not too much football, not too much basketball, but sometimes. Extracurricular activities. Smart kids tend to go with chess, orchestra, robotics, math and science Olympiads, math club. So how do you stand out from the crowd? First thing colleges look for, which they try to get from your essays and what your recommenders say about you, is your passion. While your grades are important, the depth of your extracurricular activities and evidence that you're not just an encyclopedia or test-taking machine are equally important. Admission wants to see applicants that are human. Your essay, your personal statement, don't call it an essay, is your chance to stand out from everybody as a human being. One of my favorite personal statements of all time, a girl who is currently applying to medical school after attending Stanford, had the phrase, after talking about art for the first paragraph, she said, take the mitochondria, in talking about how things in nature were perfectly made. And it was totally different, stood out as her ability to see the connections between art and science, and also just made you realize how totally committed to science she was. So if they're looking for passion, what are your passions? It could be an academic subject, but even then you need to do something with it. But it also could be the arts, biology and medicine. There are so many ways in this area to get involved, to volunteer. And a lot of these things have moved to allowing you to do things online, but you have to go out there and look for them. It's not as obvious. Business has DECA. DECA is still happening online. Washington Business Week, I assume, is happening online. I know Institute for Systems Biology, some of the researchers there are comfortable having students do some things online. It's different. You cannot do that laboratory science the way you did, but there's a lot of stuff that can be done on computers. English and architecture, Washington Aerospace Scholars, ACE Mentor Program. The ACE Mentor Program is for architecture, construction management, and engineering. It's a great program. Again, it's happening online. I noticed the Pacific Science Center had kids there this summer, which actually surprised me. At least the local Bellevue branch, the one that's on Mercer Slough. And law, this has JSA, debate, ACLU, the unemployment law projects. Always you can get involved. So what do you do while socially distant? You have to think about that. You have to search online. You have to look for things you're interested in and find out what opportunities are and there are, and you might have to talk to a lot of people. With your school and with your community, they're looking for things that you are genuinely involved in, not things that look like you're padding your resume. So how do they tell that you're genuinely involved? If you do 2 or 3 things that are all sort of law debate related, it looks a lot more of a genuine passion than if you just pick odd things here and there. If you are interested in engineering, then there would be several different kinds of things that are engineering related, maybe robotics, maybe getting involved in a project at UW, maybe things that you design yourself at home. But whatever you do, there is a connectivity, there is a continuation of a theme that they will be able to see in the activity list. Taking that SAT, ACT out here, but assuming all other factors are equal, then community service details are important decision-making factor. This is where civic involvement is a big part of what you can do. Colleges want to see people that are going to step up and work in their community because it gives them a reason to believe that this is what you will do on the campus and in the community where you go to college. People that get involved is what they're looking for. And that was from a Forbes article in 2018. It said, tie-breaking nature of community service according to admissions officers. Four-year private schools said 61% of them said that that was their tiebreaker, and public schools said 53%. And that's how, you know, all the different factors there could be. This is one factor stood out above all the others. So I listed off some ways that you could find out about opportunities to get involved. And this first guide that's in Kirkland, Washington, really covers the whole East Side. School clubs, not-for-profits, local or farther away colleges have things that you can do in the summer. Like I said, it's not going to improve your chances of being admitted. Generally, those programs are run by people who don't actually attend that school or don't actually work at that school. Okay, let's see. And this, again, they're not looking for a long list of activities, but they are looking for continuity. They're looking for things you did over a long time. They are looking for things that show a connection to each other, so it shows that you have a genuine interest in them. For interpersonal skills and values. We are human beings and we have to connect with other human beings. And they want to know that we are going to come to school with certain skills that we're willing to share and values that will make us get along with others and care about others. So it's Duke University student. These are all kids I've worked with in the past or just know really well, but I don't know how much weight was given to her comments, but making a positive impression on the interviewer could not have hurt. I don't actually think the interviewers have much impact on what you do or what you say. I think that if you have an interview, it can help you if you're absolutely fabulous, or it can hurt you if you're really not very personable and not someone that they think they would want. But most of the time, it's kind of a neutral experience. It's a chance for you to learn about the school. Okay, what colleges look for? EAED, the early action, early decision. The articles I've read said that some the schools that had been interviewed for that, many of them were going to emphasize EAED even more this year. They have a lot less information to work with, and so they're looking for people who genuinely will want to go to their school, and if they apply EA or ED, then they have reason to believe those students might actually come there. So the Business Insider did this comparison of what, this is for the class of 2021, which is the year you graduate from college. So that's, a few years ago, but it compared the EAED chances to, or the acceptance rate to the acceptance rate for regular decision. And you see that there was a significant difference for early. Early often did a lot better. However, those early acceptances are not always taken from the mainstream. Stanford emphasizes athletes and other special groups. MIT emphasizes women because it's trying to get a 50-50 balance between men and women. And for some schools, it's going to be legacies, children of long-term donors, people who have some sort of connection that the school wants, thinks is going to help them somehow. So early isn't necessary, and it isn't always in your best interest, but it is worth being aware of how each school uses its EA and ED selection. For a school that doesn't emphasize sports, that doesn't have a huge long legacy list that they always go back to, it may be that EA and ED are your best option. So some things I've discovered in my reading is that some schools are going to select more students from the ED list. Some will defer more students to make sure they have access to the maximum information. Again, that's going to be largely because the grades from last spring don't mean much. So they're going to wait. They'll defer more students and find out how they do this first semester of current semester of high school. This one, there's disagreement on whether this is really going to happen. Some schools are denying it's going to happen, but colleges that allowed more gap years will have fewer openings in 2021. A lot of kids that were going to go to college this year, more than usual, decided to take a gap year because of college being online instead of in person. The schools only have so many professors in each department teaching it at each level. So for some schools, they're going to have more people applying next year who are going to be in that taking freshman level classes. They'll have the people that are from last year that deferred and are going to start their freshman level classes next year, and then they're going to have the freshman level students that would be applying then, and they're going to have to find a way to make that work. If they take the same size classes this year that they usually do, it may end up being too crowded. Housing for the dorms and for and again, that's going to depend on the school, because a lot of schools have freshman dorms, and then after that you live off campus, and if they're a school that does that, then they only have so much room for freshmen. But if you are deferred, make sure you follow up, not just with the go online and check the box that says yes, I'm still interested, but actually express information, write a letter, an email, give them any additional information that occurs since your application. You want them to know you are genuinely interested if they are an important school to you. If you just check the box, it says, yeah, I'd still be interested, but it doesn't say it matters to you. This year, Bowdoin, which is a small main school, but a really good one, is going to do impromptu video questions, which I thought was an interesting approach. But their plan is to do give you 30 seconds to think about a random question they throw out, and then you get 2 minutes to answer it in real time. They aren't looking for people to be, dressed up and sitting at a desk. they commented that they were getting answers from people that were sitting in bed, but it was them responding to this question in real time. Interesting idea, interesting approach. So this link, which I'm sorry is going to be, I don't know, I think we're going to post these things, so maybe you can get it from that. But this link is takes you to a report put out by Harvard Graduate School of Education, and they had, the last time I looked, they had 230 colleges sign on to their policy during the pandemic. Mostly it says they intend to be gentle with people and not, and to recognize that people are under a lot of constraints right now. It's worth looking at anyway. So they're going to look at pre-pandemic grades, pre-pandemic activities, and how you tried to continue pursuing your passions even though you were staying at home. Your personal skills and values, your fit and commitment to your college. That is to say, in the question that most colleges ask, why us? Why are you applying to us? Please make sure you really research the college and you're addressing them specifically. Don't say, I loved your campus. Don't say, when I, from your online visit, because most of us are just doing online visits. Don't say, it's just, don't make a big deal out of the class size or the ratio of professors to students, because all of those things are true of most schools. Please don't say because you had an engineering major, because most schools have one. Take your time, really find out about them. Find out what you would do if you were there. Try to visualize your time there so when you respond to that question, it can be as personal as possible to that college. Your recommendations, and University of Washington is still not taking recommendations regardless, but everybody else will. Your recommendations have to come from your, one will come from your counselor. Most schools allow at least one more from a teacher. Some will take 2 from a teacher. Some will take up to 3, in which case they usually do 2 teachers and 1 other. Most of the East Side uses Naviance, and you'll be able to do those through Naviance, or you have to do those through Naviance, but then you need to, it will provide the information about what is acceptable from each school. If you're not using Naviance, make sure you look carefully at the application for the particular school and what they will allow and accept. And then we have your essays. So essays are your personal statement, which is Common App is 650 words. For the first time ever, University of Washington is asking for 650 words. Normally they ask for 550, and or they ask for 500. And the coalition application, which they are part of, asked for 550. UW's writing requirements are different than the coalition, even though they use the coalition app. Make sure you look at the University of Washington's application and the segment that is just about UW, because if you don't submit your writing through the UW part of it, they will not get it. Sorry, I can't go backward and I can't go forward. So, let's see if I can. Okay. My grades prevented me from being immediately discarded. So if you're applying to a Harvard or a Yale or an MIT or Caltech, I would assume you've got extremely high grades. 4.0 or very close to it. I would assume that if you had a chance to take a test, an ACT or an SAT, that those were perfect scores or nearly perfect scores, because there's a lot of kids out there that achieve those. So those are the people you're competing against for those schools. So in the first round of reviewing an application, an admissions officer is going to look at your grades and any information they have that tell them how you did academically, how prepared you are academically, and they'll make a first decision based on whether or not you're capable of doing the work at that school. But once they know that, they're going to have way more students who are capable of doing the work than they have room for. So they have to start figuring out which of those they want to accept. And they're going to look a lot more at things like teacher recommendations and college essays. I can tell you that on my son's application, some of the things that his reviewers commented on all the schools that he got into were things like he seemed well liked, or that they commented on his sense of humor. They found things that made him stand out from the crowd. Recommendations. So a teacher is asked how long you've known the student in what context, which means you have to choose teachers who have known you for a while. They are asked what the first words that come to mind when you think of this student. So how did you stand out in your time with that teacher? Were you someone that had interesting things to contribute to the conversation, or were you someone that always made sure they said something, but it was just, you know, something to fill the space so that you got checked for having contributed? They asked what grade levels you were enrolled in when they taught you. Normally we say use junior year. This year I'm thinking that sophomore year might be acceptable also, because that sophomore teacher had you in person for a whole year, whereas the junior teacher probably only had you in person for half a year. But basically you're looking for teachers that you feel like really did know you well. And listing the courses in which you have taught this student, including the level of course difficulty. Unless you're applying for an art program, don't list your art teacher. Okay. Teachers are asked to rate you on a variety of things, and they get 8 designations to choose from, score of 1 to 8. They have a no basis, a below average, average, good, very good, excellent, outstanding, and one of the top few I've ever encountered. And these are the things they're being asked about: academic achievement, intellectual promise, quality of writing, creative original thought, productive class discussion, respect accorded by faculty, disciplined work habits, maturity, motivation, leadership, integrity, reaction to setbacks, concern for others. Note that that's something they actually care about. Initiative, independence, and an overall rating for you. Then they write you a letter too. So understand that that's separate from the letter, but both pieces go into your recommendation. So I put this slide in of, which I don't think shows super well here, but it's a picture of how many colleges and universities there are in the US alone. 5,300. For some reason in this area, there are probably about 30 schools that most people apply to. But you're competing against the same people for all those schools. So try to find a few that other people may not have on their list that will still get you the education you want, but you're not competing with everyone you know for the same spots. How do you choose? Bragging rights is probably the most common way that students, or at least their parents, tend to choose. Best education for your career choice, appealing research opportunities, alumni network and contacts, location, size, cost. All of those things are completely legitimate, including the bragging rights, reasons to choose a school, but you have to decide what is important to you. A good fit academically. The thing I liked about test scores was not the way the schools were necessarily using them, because they can be very biased, but they told me whether a student was going to be a good fit at a school. A good fit academically, you do not want to go to a school where you're going to struggle every day because you're going to miss out on a lot of what college is about. You also don't want to go to a school that's too easy, because then it's too easy to cut classes and you get a lot less out of the education. So good fit academically is probably the most important thing. You're looking for majors and programs. A lot of people change majors. Even if you don't think there's any possibility you will, going to a school that gives you a variety of options so that you have some room to change majors without having to change colleges is a good idea. Admissions requirements. Again, this is about being a good fit, but it also is about things like what's required for graduation in this state might not be the same as it is in another state. The North Carolina state schools, 80% of who they accept have to be residents of North Carolina. So that admission requirement right there means that your chances are 20% of whatever percent that school normally takes. So if they normally take 30% and you're taking 20% of that, you're down to 6% chance. Think about that. Size matters. Some people do better in a huge school where they have lots of different opportunities and don't run into the same people all the time. Some people are going to do better in a smaller school. And that also counts. You also need to consider the size of the classrooms themselves. At UW, a lot of your required classes will be in huge lecture halls with 750 people. In a small private liberal arts college, you're probably not going to ever have a class like that. The location matter. Like I said, my son went to Harvard. He hated snow, but he put up with it. Campus climate and values. Campuses have different personalities. They go from party schools to ones that seem to attract aggressive students that are super competitive, to ones that are more socially conscious and wanting to make the world a better place. Figure out what they're about. Figure out what you fit into, because it will be easier to find your people that you want to be friends with, that you want to know for the rest of your life, if you find a place that you fit well. And then the available activities. Part of your growth opportunity at college are the activities you get involved in. That might be internships, that might be clubs, that might be speakers. You need to take a look at what the colleges offer and make sure that there are things there that you want to be part of that will contribute to your growth over the 4 years or so that you're there. So, because we always have a lot of people that want to do an Ivy League school, I always like to point out that your success in business doesn't necessarily count on going to an Ivy League school. I did this list of the top Fortune 500 CEOs from 2019. And you notice that none of these people, the Walmart CEO has no Ivy League, no Ivy League, although he did do Duke, which is an excellent school. Warren Buffett, who actually, oops, lost Warren. Try to do this again. Oh, there it was. Okay, so Warren Buffett, who he did his BS in business administration from Nebraska. I think he started at, was it Yale? Wherever he started an Ivy League school and dropped out because he didn't think they could teach him anything. So he ended up going to Nebraska, and then he went to Columbia for his MBA. Jeff Bezos was the only person in the top 10 businesses in the country that actually went to an Ivy League school. And then look at the scientists. Which universities can claim the most famous scientists? We have University of Tokyo on top, and then Dartmouth and Toronto, Duke, Imperial College. Look here, Harvard was number 15, MIT number 14, and Princeton number 11. We put a lot of value in our Ivy League schools, and I think that Ivy League education is outstanding, but maybe it's not the right fit for you, and maybe it's not the best that you can do. One of the things that parents have to do is, at the beginning of the high school, they should have a heart-to-heart with their students and talk about things like, what is the financial situation? What are the things that are going to make it possible for you to go or not go to a college? For instance, if the student is really bright and really passionate about what they're learning and passionate about what they're involved in, and you think there's a chance they could go to a very high-level school, consider the financial situation. 4 years at Harvard costs a $250,000, is that right? Yeah, it's $250,000 for 4 years at Harvard. Is that something that's in the cards, or is it going to require something extra like scholarship or whatever? And if so, what can a student do to prepare for that before they get that far? And they need to know what they are generally doing to get into college, what the priorities are. So like, this is what generally it takes to get into college. That is to say, not just keeping your grades up, but what you're involved in and what matters in that sense. And you have to emphasize that this is their journey. They don't take charge of this. It's not going to happen. When I work with students, I want the student to be the one contacting me, and the student to be the one who is watching their schedule and figuring out what all they need to do. I'm not going to babysit them, and I don't think their parents should be babysitting them, because you can't go to college with them. So if they don't learn to take charge of this now, then they may not be ready for college. So for whatever it's worth, this is what I think about their parents' role. Let the child own it. Don't micromanage them. Offer help and support. You can establish the deadlines and check in. I recommend that they put their deadlines on their bedroom door and check them off as they're done, so you don't have to make a big issue of it. Don't make it more stressful than it already is, and don't package your child. Let them discover what they love and let that come out. Students, you have 4 years to build a resume. In the 4 years you're in high school, you have to search out your passions. You should actually have a good idea of what your passions are by the time you graduate from high school. You need to get to know your counselor. You need to get to know your teachers. You need to get to know maybe even the principal. Make sure you make an effort to be noticed in a good way at your school. You have to establish your study habits. I did not learn to study until I started graduate school. It's tough to learn late in life. You need a solid transcript, and you need to know how others, it's not that you need to know how others see you, but you need to be the best person you can. You need to have people see you in the best positive way. Students who are successful at this, they own the process, they're passionate, motivated, determined, they put in the effort, and they do not take shortcuts. They show compassion and caring for others. They favor humility over arrogance, and they aren't afraid to ask for help. Your application this year is going to include fully completed, accurate forms. Fill out the forms, read them over, print them out, make sure you see any little errors you might make. Your grades, any awards, any activities, essays and supplemental essays, teacher evaluations, and your counselor statement. So keep up your grades, focus on learning, be involved in the classroom. Don't just say something to say something, but really try to be genuinely interested in what's being discussed so that your questions come from the heart. They're real questions. Explore your passions, get involved in your community. You want depth, not breadth in the things you do. Be a good person. Your personal integrity and how you treat others matter. They do ask about these things. Deeply explore your college choices, and you can do an awful lot online. So the fact that you can't go there in person should not really get in your way. And create an essay or personal statement that shows your strengths and personalities in an engaging, authentic way. Good luck. So that pretty much finishes this up, and I gotta stop sharing. There we go. Give it back to Chris.
All right, thank you so much. Hopefully,
I don't like
to everyone.
It was weird not making face contact with anybody, but it's okay. All right, so let's see. There we are. More and.
So since we are going a little bit over time, I do want us to still have the opportunity to open the floor to questions if anybody has any right now. So if you have a question, there's a reactions thing. You can put up an image so that so not everybody is like screaming at the same time. All right, I'm gonna take it no one has any questions then. In that case, I will pass it back to Conrad to give us his closing words.
Okay, well, thank you. It's very, very inspiring to hear Rob Rose about his involvement and what is the passion, what drives him. I think that's really the key word. You have passion, you have a purpose, you have meaning, and you don't give up. And I hope that we get that sense. And also appreciate what Mrs. Roper had give us, something that all the parents and all of you are deeply interested to know, what's the next step. But, as we probably should remember, the next step is just a stepping stone to the passion, to the purpose and meaning in your life. And you have to build that by, joining with other people, working as a team, stand out, not stereotypical, and to connect with all the folks that you have. So I want to thank everyone who participated. I want to thank the interns. Really appreciate all the good work you've done. This is a great, great program you put on. And also want to thank the new interns who just joined us. I hope that this gives you a glimpse of what the wonderful thing that the other interns, your peers, have been doing and showing you the potential that you can accomplish. And obviously, those of you who have not, who are logging in the first time, trying to find out more about this internship. And if you're interested, make sure that you log on to the website, pathwayus.org, and all the information would be there. Finally, I want to also mention, I started saying before, one of the group that's important that we need to acknowledge and thank them are their parents, are your parents. And there is a parental group, parents committee, that is helping us, helping all the young people to provide us all the support and all the encouragement. And the person that's heading the parental group is Jennifer Wang. So thank all the parents, particularly Jennifer, for helping out. So thank you again. And so back to Kristen.
All right. Thank you guys so much for coming. That wraps up our conference. Hopefully everybody had a good time and learned something new today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye to all of you.
Thanks, Conrad.